I stood in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, staring at the bank statement on my phone, and I couldn't breathe. The number was wrong. It had to be wrong. I refreshed the app 3 times, watching the same figure stare back at me. $47,382.15. Gone. Not in my account anymore. Every single dollar I'd sent to my mother-in-law's house over the past 8 months had vanished. And now she was texting me about Thanksgiving dinner like nothing had happened. Like we were still having it at her place. Like I had money left to spend. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the phone down on the granite countertop. Through the kitchen window, I could see my neighbor watering his lawn, living his normal Tuesday life, completely unaware that my entire world had just tilted sideways. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to scream at everyone. But I had to get to work in 20 minutes, and I had to look like a person who hadn't just watched his life implode. Let me back up. Let me tell you who I was before this morning, before the number on the screen, before everything fell apart. My name is Michael. I'm 42 years old. I work as a senior project manager at a construction firm in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, and until yesterday, I thought my life was exactly what I'd worked for. My wife is Jennifer, Jen, and we've been married for 14 years. We have 2 kids, Emma and Brandon, who are 11 and 9. We live in a 3-bedroom colonial in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy, but solid, good bones. The kind of house you see on the street and think, yeah, that's a family doing okay. And we were doing okay, better than okay actually. I'd been promoted to senior PM about 2 years ago, and the raise had been real. I started pulling in $95,000 a year, which doesn't sound like crazy money until you realize it was a 40% jump from what I'd been making. Jen and I sat down that night with a spreadsheet. We're the type of people who do that. And we mapped out our 5-year plan. Pay down the mortgage faster, save for Emma's college fund, maybe take a real vacation, not just drive 8 hours to Jen's parents' cottage in Michigan. It felt like we'd made it. Not rich, but stable, secure. That was the word we kept using, secure. Jen worked part-time as a medical assistant at a clinic downtown. She brought in about $28,000 a year, which helped, and more importantly, it got us good health insurance. We managed our money carefully. We didn't eat out much. Our car was paid off. We'd made a conscious choice to live below our means, and it was paying off. By the time of this Tuesday morning, we had almost $23,000 in savings. Real savings, an emergency fund that actually felt like a cushion. My mother-in-law is Karen. She's 67, sharp as a knife, and she'd been running her house like a small business for 40 years. Her husband, my father-in-law, died in 2015. A heart attack, sudden and devastating. Karen had rebuilt herself after that. She took some online business courses, started a small consulting side gig, and by all accounts, she was doing well. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Jen and I saw each other about once a month. Karen would host Thanksgiving and Christmas, sometimes Easter. She made this incredible turkey with a compound herb butter, and she'd spend days prepping. Her house was always impeccable. She had a cleaning service come twice a month. Everything about Karen suggested a woman who had her life together. That's what made what happened next so perfectly believable. It was January when Karen first called Jen. I was in the home office wrapping up a job estimate when Jen came in with that look on her face. You know the look, the one where someone's about to tell you bad news, but they're trying to dress it up first. My mom's having some cash flow issues, she said, sitting down on the edge of my desk. With her consulting clients, a couple of them delayed payment, and she's got some bills due. I looked up from my laptop. How much are we talking? She was wondering if we could help her bridge the gap, just for a few months until the payments come through. I leaned back in my chair. How much, Jen? $5,000. I didn't say anything for a moment. $5,000 wasn't nothing, but it also wasn't a bankruptcy-level crisis. Not for us. Not then. She's asking us for $5,000? She wouldn't ask if it wasn't real, Michael. You know my mom. She's proud. This is embarrassing for her. And that was true. Karen was proud. She'd always been the strong one, the one who had everything figured out. The idea of her asking for help actually made it easier to say yes, somehow. If she was desperate enough to call her daughter, it must be serious. Okay, I said. We can do 5,000. Tell her we'll transfer it this week. Jen smiled, relieved. She kissed the top of my head. Thank you. She said it would only be 3 months, maybe 4, until everything's settled. I nodded and went back to my estimate. I remember feeling like a good son-in-law, like I was being a good man, helping family when they needed it. Looking back, I can see exactly where I went wrong. I didn't ask questions. I didn't ask for details about which clients, what the timeline was, when the money would be repaid. I just gave it. Because Karen asked, and because Jen asked, and because I could afford it. The money transferred on a Thursday. That Friday, Karen texted Jen a simple message. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means. I'll pay you back with interest. With interest. I remember Jen showing me that text, and I thought, see? Everything's fine. It's temporary. She's good people. But then March came, and Karen called again. March came, and Karen called again. This time, she needed 7,000. Then in May, another 8. By July, I stopped asking Jen what the excuse was. I just transferred the money. By that Tuesday morning in November, I'd sent $47,382.15 to my mother-in-law's house. Almost 50 grand. Nearly 2 years of savings. Gone. That's when I finally looked at the bank transfers themselves, instead of just the running total. Date, amount, recipient. All of it pointing to an account I didn't recognize. Not Karen's personal checking account, which I'd seen on the first transfer. Something else. Something with initials that made my stomach drop. DM Consulting, LLC. I called Jen at work. I need you to come home, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. She was there in 35 minutes. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, a folder full of bank statements spread out in front of me like evidence at a crime scene. What is it? She asked, already frightened. I didn't say anything. I just turned the laptop toward her and pointed at the screen. Her face went white. Michael, I can explain. Who is DM Consulting? It's complicated. Who is DM Consulting? Jen sat down slowly. David Miller. He's a business consultant my mom hired to help her with her cash flow problems. The room tilted. A business consultant. He came highly recommended. He was supposed to help her restructure her finances, cut costs, increase revenue. She was supposed to pay him once her clients paid her back. And where is this restructuring, Jen? Where are the results? She didn't answer. How many times did you talk to your mother about this? I asked. Michael. How many times? Just the first call, that one time in January. She said she was hiring someone and it would help her get back on track faster. I believed her. I believed her because she's my mother. I stood up. I needed to move or I was going to explode. We need to call her, right now. Karen picked up on the third ring. I put her on speaker. Hi, honey, she said, her voice bright. How are the kids? Karen, we need to talk about the money, I said. No preamble. No time for her to adjust her story. There was a long pause. What do you mean? The $47,000 we've sent you since January, to DM Consulting. I want to know exactly what that money was for, and I want to know right now. Another pause. Longer. That money was an investment, Karen said finally. Her voice had changed. Harder. An investment in what? In a business opportunity David identified, a real estate development project. He said it had tremendous potential, and he needed capital partners to get in on the ground floor. I felt Jen grab my arm. So you took money from us, I said slowly, and you invested it in a real estate deal, without telling us. You gave me that money willingly, Michael. I didn't force you. You lied about why you needed it. You said it was for bills. You said it was to bridge a gap until your consulting clients paid you. I didn't lie. I said I had cash flow problems. I did. I was going to use the investment returns to pay you back with interest. David said we'd see returns within 18 months. David said, and you believed him? He's very convincing, Karen said, and I heard something in her voice, not guilt, but defensiveness, like she was explaining herself to someone she'd already convinced. He has a track record. He's worked with major developers in the region. Have you checked his track record? I asked. Have you verified anything about this man? Jen was shaking her head frantically. She was mouthing something at me, but I couldn't focus on what. I've seen the business plan, Karen said. It's all very professional. David said, "Stop," I said. "Just stop. I'm going to ask you one question and I need you to answer it honestly. Have you received any documentation from this David Miller? Contracts, property deeds, anything in writing that shows where this money went?" Silence. "Karen?" "The documentation is still being prepared. It's a complex project. These things take time." "How much time?" "Michael, I understand you're upset. How much time?" 6 to 8 weeks, David said. "Once the legal paperwork is finalized, everyone will get their documentation." I laughed. It was a horrible sound. You invested $50,000 in a real estate project, and you don't have a single piece of paper proving you own anything. "That's not fair. You're being unfair. This is a legitimate opportunity." "Then why haven't you told us about it until now? Why did you hide it?" "I didn't hide it. You never asked." "We asked repeatedly, Karen. We asked what the money was for. We asked about timelines. We asked about repayment schedules. And every single time, you lied." Jen pulled at my arm harder. She was crying now, silently, her whole body shaking. "I'm coming over there," I said, "right now. And I want to see everything you have about this investment, every email, every piece of paperwork, everything." "Michael, you need to calm down." I hung up. The drive to Karen's house took 30 minutes. Jen didn't say a word the entire time. She just stared out the window, her hand covering her mouth. When we got there, Karen was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed. She'd printed out exactly 6 pages, a colorful brochure with photos of a luxury mixed-use development in a part of Columbus I'd never heard of. An email from David Miller describing the investment opportunity in vague, flowery language. 2 bank statements showing deposits from investor partners, and a handwritten note, literally handwritten, saying Michael and Jennifer Chen, investment amount $47,382.15, expected return $85,000 by Q4 2024. A handwritten note, $50,000, rested on a handwritten note. "Where is the deed?" I asked. "Where is the property survey? Where is the proof of ownership?" "David said those would come with the final documentation," Karen repeated. "Do you understand what you've done?" I asked her. "Do you have any idea?" "I'm trying to build wealth, Michael. I'm trying to make sure I have security in my retirement. And I'm trying to give you and Jen the benefit of an incredible opportunity. You've stolen from us." "I haven't stolen anything. You gave me that money." "Under false pretenses. You lied about why you needed it. You lied about what you were using it for. And now you're sitting here defending a man you've never met, who's asking for 6 to 8 weeks to produce basic documentation that any legitimate business should have ready before taking a dime." Karen's face flushed red. "You've always been jealous of me, Michael. You've never thought I was good enough. Well, I'm doing something for myself for once, and I'm not going to apologize for it." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I walked back to the car. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "To find David Miller," I said. It took me 3 hours and 1 phone call to a buddy who worked in commercial real estate. There was no D.M Consulting LLC registered with the state of Ohio. There was no luxury mixed-use development on the property Karen had shown me. The address on the brochure didn't exist. It was a vacant lot that had been tied up in a zoning dispute for 5 years. David Miller had 17 different addresses across Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. He'd been named in 2 civil fraud cases in the past decade. He had no legitimate business license in any of those states. The track record, Karen mentioned, was a trail of complaints and lawsuits. I called a criminal defense attorney I knew from work and sent him all the documentation. His response was immediate. "This is a Ponzi scheme. Your mother-in-law has been targeted by a classic advance fee fraud artist. The initial returns she might have seen were her own money being recycled back to her to build credibility. I'm sorry, Michael, but that money is almost certainly gone. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of my office and cried. Not quietly, not the kind of tears you hide. I cried the way you cry when you realize you've been a fool, when you understand that trusting the wrong person has destroyed the life you built. Then I called the police. The detective's name was Lisa Chen, no relation to me, but it made her easier to trust somehow. She listened to my story, looked at the documentation, and said the same thing the lawyer had said. This is a classic Ponzi scheme. Mr. Miller, or whatever his real name is, has probably moved on to another town by now. The money's gone. But we'll file a report, and you should contact the FBI's fraud division. Can you arrest him? I asked. We'd need to locate him first, and we'd need to prove intent to defraud, which is complicated when the victim willingly transferred the funds. Your mother-in-law would have to testify that she was deliberately misled. She was deliberately misled. She was lied to. I understand, but she'll have to be willing to say that under oath. She'll have to admit that she was the one who took your money and gave it to this man. Are you prepared for that? I wasn't. I wasn't prepared for any of this. That night, I sat down with Jen and told her everything. She listened with her head in her hands. When I finished, she didn't say anything for a long time. "What do we do?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I said. "I honestly don't know." But I did know. Deep down, I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, I called a family law attorney. His name was Robert Walsh, and he specialized in financial fraud cases within families. I met him in his office on a Thursday afternoon. "Okay," he said, sliding a yellow legal pad across his desk. "Let me ask you some questions. First, are you prepared to pursue legal action against your mother-in-law?" "I don't know," I said. "That's my wife's mother." "Which is why you need to understand the implications. If you sue her, this becomes public record. Your children will eventually learn about it. Your wife will have to testify. Family relationships will be permanently damaged." "They're already damaged." "They can be damaged a lot more," Robert said. He wasn't being cruel. He was being honest. "Here's what I can tell you. If your mother-in-law acted in good faith, if she genuinely believed this was a legitimate investment and passed that belief to you, then you might have a civil case for fraud, but it's not as strong as you'd want. If she acted with intent to defraud you, knowing it was a scam, then you have a much stronger case. But you'll need to prove her state of mind, and that's harder than you think. What if we just ask her to pay us back? Then you'd need to ask her to admit to the fraud, which she's unlikely to do. And even if she did, she probably can't pay you back. Do you know if she has assets?" "Her house. She owns it outright." Robert nodded slowly. "That's something then. You could potentially place a lien against it if you want a judgment." "I don't want to take her house." "Then what do you want?" I sat there for a moment thinking about that question. What did I want? I wanted my money back. I wanted to not have trusted her. I wanted to go back to January and tell Jen, no, absolutely not. We're not giving your mother $5,000. I wanted to be the kind of man who asked questions, instead of the kind who just opened his wallet and handed over his family's security. "I want her to tell the truth," I said finally. "I want her to admit what she did, and I want her to understand the damage she caused." "That's admirable," Robert said. "But I'm a lawyer, not a therapist. I can help you get money. I can't help you get an apology." I left his office knowing I wasn't going to sue her. I couldn't do it. Not to Jen, not to Emma and Brandon, who loved their grandmother. But I also couldn't just let it go. So I did something different. I called Karen and asked her to come to the house. Just her. No Jen, no kids. Just me and her in my living room on a Saturday afternoon. She came suspicious, defensive. "I've been to see a lawyer," I told her. "I've spoken to the police. I've had the FBI fraud division send me information about David Miller. I know exactly what happened. I know this is a scam. I know the money is gone, and I know you know it too." Karen's face went very still. I'm not going to sue you, I continued. I'm not going to press charges. I'm not going to tell Jen or the kids any of this if you don't want me to. But I need you to understand something. That money was our life. That was college funds. That was our security. That was the thing that let me sleep at night knowing that if something happened to me, my family wouldn't be homeless. And you gave it to a con artist. Michael, let me finish. I need you to look me in the eye and tell me that you know what you did was wrong. Not that you made a mistake, not that you were trying to help, that you took money from your daughter's family under false pretenses and invested it in something you didn't understand with a man you'd never met, and you lied about it repeatedly when we asked you what was going on. Karen's jaw clenched. I was trying to secure my future by stealing from us. I didn't steal from you. I stood up. Then we're done here. I'm going to talk to Jen. I'm going to tell her everything. I'm going to tell the kids, and I'm going to sue you for every penny, and I'm going to put a lien on your house, and I'm going to make sure you understand that there are consequences for what you did. Karen stood up too. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. Jen would never forgive you. It would destroy your marriage. Maybe, I said, but at least it would be honest. At least Jen would know the truth instead of living with a lie. For a moment, Karen and I just stood there. I could see her calculating, weighing her options, trying to figure out how to keep control of this situation. Then something in her face changed. I need the money back, she said quietly. From David. I've been asking him for months. He keeps saying it's coming, that the project is moving forward, that there will be returns soon. But I don't think it's coming. No, I said, it's not. I made a terrible mistake, she whispered. And there it was, not an apology, not yet, but an admission, a crack in the wall. Yes, I said, you did. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell Jen the truth, all of it, and I want you to help me figure out how to fix this. Karen nodded slowly. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Will you tell her that I'm sorry? You can tell her yourself. We called Jen into the room. I watched my wife's face as her mother explained what she'd done. The false promises about cash flow, the investment that was never an investment, the man who took the money and disappeared. I watched Jen cry, angry and hurt and betrayed. But I also watched her look at her mother and see a foolish, frightened woman who'd made a catastrophic mistake. Not evil, just human. I'll help you figure out how to repay them, Jen said finally. We'll sell the house if we have to. You're not selling your house, I said. Then what are we doing? Jen asked me. I'd had 3 days to think about this, 3 days of rage and despair and insomnia. And I'd come to understand that there was no fixing this. There was no getting the money back. There was no way to undo it. But there was a way forward. We're going to rebuild, I said. We're going to rebuild our savings. We're going to rebuild our emergency fund, and we're going to rebuild our life. It's going to take years, but we're going to do it. Karen started paying us back $200 a month. It wasn't much. At that rate, it would take nearly 20 years to pay off the full amount, but it was something. It was acknowledgement. It was effort. The money never came back completely. What came back was a kind of fragile truth between us. Karen had to face what she'd done. Jen had to face the fact that her mother wasn't infallible, and I had to face the fact that trusting people isn't weakness, but not asking questions is. 2 years later, I got a call from Detective Chen. David Miller had been arrested in Indiana for running the same scam on 43 different families. The total take was over $2 million. He was facing federal charges, and the detective wanted to know if I wanted to file a victim impact statement. I did. And when I stood up in that courtroom and talked about how my mother-in-law's greed and naivete had nearly destroyed my family's financial security, I looked directly at David Miller, and I saw him for what he was. A predator who preyed on people's desire to believe that money could be made easily, that life could be better with just one more investment, one more opportunity. Miller got 8 years. Karen got a wake-up call that money can't buy wisdom, and that the person you become when you chase quick wealth is someone you won't recognize in the mirror. The lesson I learned wasn't about my mother-in-law or David Miller. It was about myself. I learned that I could survive being fooled. I learned that my marriage could survive betrayal. And I learned that sometimes the hardest thing to do is to ask the person you love to tell you the truth, and then to listen when they do. We didn't have Thanksgiving at Karen's house that year. We had it at ours. She brought the turkey and the herb butter, and we sat down as a family and ate together, fractured, but present. Emma and Brandon didn't know the full story. They didn't need to. What they knew was that family was complicated, that people made mistakes, and that sometimes you forgave them not because they deserved it, but because the alternative, staying angry forever, would destroy you just as surely as the scam had tried to destroy us.